Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Acsom Bulletin. There are four of us today on this Tuesday. We've got myself, Declan McConville, Patrick McGill up the top beside me, and down the bottom, Lawrence and Natasha. How are we all doing on this Tuesday?
A bit
Well,
saddened by yesterday's news, mate.
Yep.
The great John Hughes passing on.
Yeah, so John Hughes signed for Celtic in 1959. He made his debut against Ferd Lanark in 1960, scored in his debut. Obviously, those Celtic teams of those days under the great Jimmy McGrory didn't have a lot of success. But Big Yogi coming into that team with the likes of Stevie Chalmers, John Clark, Billy McNeil, guys like Paddy Cairn, who obviously went down to Manchester United very early on then. He caught the eye, I think it's fair to say, very early on when he scored in the quarter final of the old Cup winners. Sorry, not the Cup Winners' Cup. In the tournament that we got to the semi final against the MTK Budapest, he scored the winning goal against Bratislava. It got Celtic to its first ever European semi final. And then things changed at Celtic, obviously, with the arrival of Jock Stein. He played up top in that 65 Scottish Cup final, in which Celtic defeated them fairly in 3-2. Goals coming from Bertie Auld and Billy McNeil. And then possibly his most important game, which he very kindly signed my programme to, is this League Cup final from 1965, which Celtic, people might not believe me when I say this, got 2 penalties in a cup final against Rangers, and Yogi scored both of them. An incredible feat. I think he's probably the only man to ever do that, because we never mind one penalty. We never get ever 2 bloody penalties, which Big Yogi would probably tell you himself. He played an important part in the Lisbon Lions signed. He played in 5 of those 9 games on the run to Lisbon. He should be rightly remembered as a Lisbon Lion, as should his other teammates who made up the squad. He played important parts under Jock Stein's side, with the quality streak coming in, and obviously to the tail end of his Celtic career, scoring a wonderful header against Leeds United in front of a record European crowd in the semi-final of the European Cup. He was forced out of Celtic in 1971, didn't know anything about the transfer to Crystal Palace when he headed down there with his Celtic teammate Willie Wallace. After leaving Celtic, one of the standout things from his book, which is just above me there, written by Alec Gordon, as he said, he always wanted to be remembered fondly as a Celtic man. He very much so was that. He was a feature at the match day. I used to see him quite regularly in Club Celtic with Kathleen Murdoch, the late Bobby Murdoch's wife, and his big pal John Fallon. And obviously there'll be many Celtic fans who probably popped into McConnell's and other various pubs that Big Yogi worked in and used to see him pulling pints, and could hear him regale them with his tales of his successes in football. Everyone at a Celtic state of mind's thoughts are with the Hughes family at this sad time, and on a personal note, he was a very nice man, like all his Lisbon teammates. As Big Yogi passes on, another person in the Lisbon story of Celtic Football Club passes, but as long as there's a Celtic, the name of John Yogi Hughes will always be remembered. Lawrence, you, like myself, mate, Big Yogi many a times, obviously, down at the penalty spot with Kevin. He had the big man down. What was your memories of Big Yogi?
I think over and above everything else, just how much he loved Celtic. You know, he would talk about his career and the current team, but everything shone through just how much he loved Celtic. Talked about how much he was disappointed to leave to go to Palace, how it was kind of forced on him, and he just didn't like South London at all. I know he kind of had a short spell at Sunderland, but yeah, just I think, listening to my dad, remember him saying, unplayable was a word invented for Yogi Hughes when he was on form. It says Yogi on form, Celtic won.
Yeah, and he played with a lot of great strikers at the club throughout that time. And Patrick, his goal-scoring exploits are truly remarkable. Since he retired from football in 1971, only one player has scored more goals for Celtic since him. He's Celtic's 7th top greatest ever goal scorer, which is a wonderful feat, considering, for a lot of his early Celtic career, he played in a team that wasn't successful at all.
Yeah, an absolutely incredible record, and a wonderful 11 years he gave to the club. As you say, he stands among giants. I mean, when you put it in context like that, there's only one player to have scored more goals for Celtic since he's retired. it's hard to put into words the sort of the contribution he made to that side, and of course that's among many great strikers. You know, you've got Willie Wallace, Bobby Lennox, Stevie Chalmers, and then attackers like Jimmy Johnson, and then the Quality Street gang coming through just as he was leaving. To not only be in the side but to score so many goals in that side, it's an absolutely incredible feat, and it was very sad news last night.
Yeah, it was sad news, Natasha. It's we're now down to 5 Lisbon Lions left from that squad. As I said, I think with every line that passes a story about that squad passes, but the big man like Charlie Gallagher and obviously Bertie are 2 most recent lines that passes will always be remembered.
That's it. Their stories live on through Celtic. And of course, the 3 of us anyway, were not around to see Yogi play for Celtic, but we've been taught the history by our families. We've seen the videos capturing the football of the immortal Lisbon Lions. We've seen the many goals that Yogi scored, and despite not even having been alive at the time, the 3 of us still remember that goal he scored against Leeds at Hampden, and that's what Celtic is. It's these stories that live on. These players are immortal, and they don't just live on through their footballing history. They live on through their families as well. I think we all know his son, also John. He's obviously got 4 children, but John has always been a great supporter, particularly for me. He's been great with me. He's been great with Acsom. We know he likes the show. So of course we are all sending our love and best wishes to him. And like I mentioned, his legacy doesn't just live on through his football, but through his children and grandchildren. The stories that he'll have will keep being repeated. And they need to be, because quite simply what he and his teammates achieved will never be seen again. So we'll always be grateful to them for that. And long may their stories live on.
Yeah, absolutely. Lawrence, I've got a great video that Big Yogi does with Jim Craig when Jim was working at Celtic Park at the time. And Jim Craig asks him, would you fancy yourself in a modern day? And he says, yeah, I think I would, because obviously in those days there's that famous story of him wearing the sannies, if it will. When we beat Aberdeen 8-0, he scores 5 of the goals, the pitch is frozen. Any kind of old press reports you read about, Yogi was vital in games and heavy pitches, which were obviously the norm in those days, just due to the way he would carry the ball for you and get you up the park and scored goals. I think in the modern day too that Yogi could have been a player used by any manager just due to his versatility too. 189 goals for a man who played both in the wing and up front, mainly in the wing, says a lot about him as a football player.
Yeah, I mean, last time me and Kevin from the Balance spot were out with him down at Green at Celtic Sports. We're talking about obviously that Angie's team in the car on the way down, and John's giving you on through and giving you a few tips on what to watch out for players. And obviously it comes up, where would you think you would have done it, John? And said, well, look, the kind of striker you'd have liked. Anywhere across the front 3 you can play, score goals for fun, So, yeah, it's hard to see how he wouldn't be an asset to any team. But that's killing me. Juventus came in, was it 63 or 64 or something for him?
Yeah, there was interest.
Not the fact. Yeah, when he was 18 years old or something. I can't remember exactly when, but yeah, Yogi tried to buy him from Celtic, and obviously Celtic said no, but yeah, just an outstanding player. Yeah. I think it was Billy McNeil's Sanchez, wasn't it, that he borrowed for that game against Aberdeen? It was but honestly, any time you were out with him, just really unassuming, just loved Celtic, just talk Celtic all the time. The modern team, guys he played with, who he'd like to see signed, what maybe the manager could do different with the team, what he'd like to see happen. Just 100% Celtic by John Hughes.
Yeah, absolutely. A total Celtic man through and through. Patrick, it was nice. His son, who Natasha's already spoke about, young John, put up a really nice tweet earlier on to say that one of the last moments where their dad was watching the game on Sunday, managed to give them a sing-song of grace and a wee fist bump after Stephen Welsh got the goal. Obviously a man who had scored many a goal for Celtic, but it's a really nice moment to keep and cherish that. It was also nice to see him at the event in May that they had to celebrate 55 years since the Lisbon achievement. It's fitting that these men are remembered. The club did well by them in that event, but it's very fitting that they should always be remembered at Celtic Football Club, the Lisbon Lions.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about that. You know, they're always going to be remembered, as you said, as long as there's a Celtic, people remember John Hughes. Um, and it shows just how intertwined, his life was with Celtic and how Celtic is with him, because as his son said, one of the final lovely moments they had was with Celtic, celebrating the opening day of the season. Um, it's incredibly sad because he's given so much to the club, and everyone knows him, everyone knows what he's done, and you posted a video last night of him talking about the fans and the connection he had with the fans, and the connection all of them have had with the fans, really, because they've all been so approachable and so very down to earth and very humble, and just more than happy to talk about their experience and what they've done for the club. So really, they've been a servant to Celtic long after they've stopped playing, because they're willing to go out to social clubs and tell their stories to fans over and over again. So just very sad news.
Yeah, it's deeply sad news. The Tasha, as Patrick said, that he was a permanent fixture up in Club Celtic in the lounges. He was always through in that back lunch with Kathleen and John, and he was always an approachable, friendly big guy. As Patrick says there, he was able to tell you your stories. He would sign anything you wanted to sign, photographs with fans and whatnot. Another thing, we bang on here a lot about Celtic academy players and whatever else, but majority of these guys that came through into that Lisbon Lions team, Yogi, along with some of the guys I mentioned at the start, are again great poster boys to anything that comes through those ranks at Celtic Park. Obviously a complete different generation, but he basically came to Celtic directly from, I think, Shots Born Accord right into that first team under Jock's team.
Yeah, an incredible legacy for the club, and the younger players today just need to look at what they achieved and hopefully aspire to follow in the footsteps of Lions, because that's what they could do. Stephen Welsh being one of them. I think he will take a lot from that story that Yogi's son John told about some of his last moments being celebrating that Stephen Welsh goal. And I think Stephen will take a lot of heart from that. I think he'll like that being, one of our own, an academy player, someone who loves the club just like Yogi did. And I think what we can do from this, of course, it's sad, is what I've really enjoyed is seeing all the stories about him, because like you all say, he's very approachable, he was very down to earth, he was very accessible, and someone who spoke to everyone about Celtic and his memories of playing for the club with these incredible stories. And what we're seeing now is people now retelling those stories, and there's perhaps some people haven't heard before that are now being shared online. And something that his son said was that he's taken a lot of heart from that, a lot of comfort from that. And I certainly know from my perspective, hearing these stories of people's interactions with him has just been fantastic. So while we do mourn the loss of another Lion, we also get the chance to celebrate his life through these stories and these exchanges. And there's definitely a lot of comfort to be taken in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Lawrence, a great record of honours at Celtic, and again, it really was a contrast. Sir Alex Ferguson always says that if you'd have written a book about the turnaround at Celtic from 1965 onwards, you would call it fiction. Big Yogi, 7 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups, 5 League Cups, and of course a European Cup winners medal. Some turnaround, and a very, very important part of that Celtic team in the early 60s and the late 60s, and somebody that basically typified Celtic in the 60s.
Yeah, but he's another one of McGrory signings. I think out the Lions only Wallace wasn't signed with McGrory. So as you said, it wasn't the best of times early 60s, but I think those players, they got a lot of experience. Some chose to move on, some stayed and got the reward for staying when Steenkamp and really turned things about. Tennis to a height that's probably will never be reached again. 11 local boys are in the team. Even Chai Gallagher, I think they all qualified for medals. All local guys. Beating the best in Europe and being a real European force over a number of years. Been one of the best teams in Europe for 5-6 years, solid. Yeah. The stories John could tell and frequently did tell to supporters, just a cracking big guy that was Celtic that really lived the dream. 17 years old, scoring your debut. Was it 3 games in, scores against Rangers? It's just stuff of legend, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And he most definitely is a true Celtic legend. He'll be fondly remembered. I hope the club do right by him at the weekend. I'm sure they will, with their own tributes. And again, everyone at Celtic State of Mind, pass on our condolences to the Hughes family. Patrick, moving on to the game on Sunday. It was great to get back to Celtic Park for a competitive game. Obviously, we've been there for Blackburn and Norwich. But we were back. It was a real carnival atmosphere, and it was some spectacle before the game kicked off.
Yeah, I walked into the ground when they were playing Grace, which was a wonderful rendition. And I'd walked in. I think I was one of the last in the ground by that point, and I was still 10 minutes before kickoff because the place was absolutely packed. It was rocking. The sun was shining. 4:30 on a Sunday, and it was a great atmosphere. And because of the pandemic, we'd rarely seen those days. I think the last time we had a flag day was probably August 2019. I think I'm right in saying. So it's great to have these days back. Obviously, you need to win the league to do these things, and it's fantastic that we're back on top as well. And the performance that the players put on as well was exceptional. It's no guarantee that after all that carnival atmosphere you're going to play well, but we did play well, and the atmosphere continued, and it was a great performance. And it was 2-0 going on 5-0, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it was very controlled, Natasha. I thought for large parts of the game. I wasn't taken aback at Ange Postecoglou after the game. I was in the post-match presser, but he wasn't in the best of moods. I expect him to be a wee bit more happier. But I think one of the biggest things I took away from the post-match was one of the journalists in the room asked him, is it about getting into a rhythm and the goals just come? And he says, no, I don't buy into that at all. He says the league started, that there's no such thing as rhythm. I don't buy into that. It should basically just come from what we've been working on, which I think says a lot about the standards Ange Postecoglou is setting at Celtic and has been setting for well over a year now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he doesn't want us to, need a sort of running start to this. He wants us to hit the ground running. Game one. This is our first competitive game. Yes, the friendlies were a great preparation in terms of the fact that they weren't that friendly. They did feel like very competitive games, and they were played at a very high tempo, which I think was important because, Aberdeen had played a few competitive games. They've been in the League Cup and things like that leading up to it. This is going to be our first taste of competitive football. Ange wanted us to be ready for that, not take some time to get into it and get used to it. I was probably a little bit less harsher in my sort of post-match analysis than he was. I thought we played some really good football, particularly in the middle of the park. But I do probably share the slight concern that it wasn't quite linking up front. I thought Yogi was relatively quiet by his standards. And despite all the good football we were playing and the good football in the middle of the park, we weren't really taking advantage of that. We weren't, converting that into clear-cut chances. And when we were creating chances, we weren't then taking advantage of them. So I think that's probably what is concerning Ange, and what maybe saw his grumpiness in the post-match interview, is that, in other games, we need to take those chances. We can't pass up that sort of many opportunities. And if it hadn't been, for that Jota goal with, 10 minutes to go roughly, that could have been a very nervy finish to the game, particularly with a couple of corners that Aberdeen had late on. And Ange doesn't want to finish the game sort of nervy 1-0 holding on. So that's not his style. That's not how he wants his football to be played. And given our dominance and our possession, it should never have come down to that. But it didn't. Jota got his goal, fantastic goal that it was. But I do get his frustrations at the fact that it was only 2-0. We didn't really take advantage of a lot of the good football that we played. But listen, like I said, we're only one competitive game into our season. We're already looking good. There'll be things to work on. Of course there will be, and I'm sure he'll be doing that in training this week.
Yeah, absolutely, and a whole week to do it again. Lawrence, Gary Melrose just came in here to say no excuses from Ange Postecoglou. Great warning shot across the bows of the team, and Jota in particular. It was that as well. But when asked about Jota, he just came in after a wondered goal. We spoke to him after we'd spoken to Ange, but I don't think he'd heard what the manager had said about him. He said it was one of the worst culprits for losing the ball out of possession. Yeah, it was a real warning shot, but again, as Natasha said, it almost felt strange because usually at this point in time, you've watched Celtic in a couple of dodgy European qualifiers. You've seen them come through it, played some maybe good football. Maybe need to go back to Astana for maybe playing good football in European qualifiers, but it just seemed like this is a complete warning shot here. I'm setting the standards, and I expect those standards to be delivered, which is probably why I think you might shake up the team a wee bit come the weekend.
Yeah, I don't think it was too different performance from the Norwich performance. It was very kind of pre-season. We got an early goal, and we just didn't seem to be able to convert the chances or making off of them. Clear cutting off, good decision with the balls, and it's a wonder goal from Jota that's really given us a bit of comfort. If he's not scored that, Aberdeen might have thought, what, that this is all to play for here at 1-0. So you can see why Ange is frustrated. And with Natasha on it, I didn't think Kyogo done the best up front. It's maybe, if I'd said that against Norwich, I thought Giakoumakis needed to come on. Kyogo wasn't leading well. So, yeah, we definitely need to do better with the chances we're creating. Could have had a pen right enough, when the boy dived down and takes a tatty out. Ref had a great view of it. If only we had VAR in, and then we could have just blamed the guys in the VAR room for not giving us it. But, yeah, can see what Anne's is saying. We really need to start taking our chances and be a bit more clinical. It did feel very pre-season, much like the Norwich game. It didn't feel like we'd up the standard from there or up the intensity, which I think Ange is right to expect. We should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Patrick, we know that Celtic can go to another gear. I said to Jane that sits beside me at the game, it feels like an early game in the season. You can just tell that. For people asking, no, I don't think David Martindale will be joining us in this podcast. I know he goes another team's podcast out with Livingston, but I don't think we'll be getting Davey on to talk on an Acsom. But listen, he'd be more than welcome if he wanted to, because he seems to be going on in other SPFL Premiership podcasts. Patrick, just on this, another Patrick's come in to say that he believes that Ange should not go public in his comments, keep them in the dressing room. I think it's really refreshing to actually hear him come out and say this, because I think it brings you down a wee bit of level. If those Celtic players are going into the dressing room and thinking, yep, job done, great performance, blah, blah, blah. Not the case at all. And it's all about the standards he's setting at the football club, which, I think we don't want to be things sugar-coated up and hear nonsense. We want truth out of there. And I think it's refreshing to hear him say, I think it's refreshing to hear his comments that he did say on Sunday.
Yeah, especially if, we appear to be playing well, and Jota's come out and saying that he enjoyed the performance, he thought he plays well, but then if he's not playing to Ange's system, Ange needs to be in control. Ange, he needs to have the respect and the command of the dressing room, so he needs to make sure that all the players are playing to, signing off the same hymn sheet, playing to his style, or else you end up losing control of the dressing room and it all sort of goes to pot. But if he's setting the standards, as you say, we're wanting to try and compete not only at a Scottish level but at a European level. So if we're losing the ball too much and we're not taking advantage of these chances, then Ange needs to come out and say that, and he needs to come out and say it publicly so the players understand and get the message that they do need to up their game, because we're only 4 or 5 weeks away from playing potentially one of the best teams in the world. We could be playing against Manchester City in 4 weeks' time. You just don't know. So we need to be ready for that. And Ange obviously has identified that, and he wants to go public to make sure that everyone understands that.
Yeah, I've got absolutely no issues with it at all, Natasha. I thought it was very refreshing. One player who he was, praising was Stephen Welsh after the game. I thought it was kind of justice done for Stephen Welsh. There was a lot of chat leading up to the game of folks saying, don't play him. And myself, Lawrence and Patrick on last week all said, yep, start Stephen Welsh. Lawrence Saints is just in the door. He's played a lot of pre-season. He's been important in pre-season. And I thought it was kind of justice done for Stephen Welsh. And it'll be interesting to see how he kicks on again, because Ange certainly in the lead up to the game on Sunday was full of praise for him. And he came away with a comment saying it's now time for him to step up, which I thought was really, really interesting to hear. And as long as a defender's keeping clean sheets and scoring goals, he's not going to drop out the team.
No, all credit to Stephen, and I certainly would have started him against Aberdeen as well. you know what, he doesn't really do anything wrong, Stephen Welsh. I think he's just very competent, gets on with his job, minimal fuss, and he's good at it, you know. He got a good amount of, you know, football last season. He's bringing this experience of pre-season into this season. Yes, when both fully fit, I think Starfelt and Carter Vickers are the first choice, but it's great to be able to have Stephen Welsh as a really able deputy. Obviously, we've brought Jens in. It'll be interesting to see where he ranks in the pecking order. I think at the moment he's probably a bit too new, a bit too fresh. Maybe needs more time to work with the team, work in training, get used to the system. He looked great for the sort of cameos that we've seen of him during pre-season. But that spot was always going to be Stephen Welsh's at the weekend. You know, he's the one who's played the most game time. He's the one who understands the system and has shown himself to be a very competent player, playing alongside Carter Vickers. So again, was impressed by him at the weekend. I imagine he'll keep his place for Ross County this weekend coming. And I'm absolutely fine with that. I've got confidence in him to do the job. So no issues from me. I think Starfelt's probably still a little bit away. Just before the Aberdeen game, Andrew mentioned that, you know, Starfelt had only trained twice, so really wasn't ready to come back after, you know, that injury yet. Yes, he'll have more training sessions under his belt before Dingwall, but probably, you know, not enough. If there's any element of risk, you don't take it because, you know, Stephen Welsh is doing absolutely fine. So leave him there until, you know, you feel that Starfelt or Jens are the better option. But right now, Welsh is doing just fine for me.
Yeah, Lawrence made a really good point on this last week, trying to get Starfelt back in and try to, you know, set the target. Probably the first derby game of getting him into the team. But Lawrence, you know, thinking about Andrew's comments about him stepping up and whatnot, you know, he's not seen Stephen Welsh here as just, you know, a young academy product coming into the team. You know, he's not featured very heavily for Celtic over the course of, especially since, you know, the start of the year. But you can see that Ange Postecoglou's got a lot of trust in him. And we learned yesterday from Anthony Joseph that Toulouse have now stopped their interest. He was their main defensive target. They're going to move on. So hopefully that's the end of that saga and he can just, you know, focus on this season, which I think he's wanting to do at Celtic.
Next season for him, I mean, a worry last season, I think we're all for keeping him, was, you know, last people said, is he going to get enough hours, you know, game time? Because we need him to develop. Because I could see him being a long-term option. Maybe Stephen Welsh has got a target of being this season's Greg Taylor. He says, look at Greg.
Bold prediction, you know, I like it, Lawrence. Yep,
he's established himself as the left back. He's the boy to get the jersey off. If you're Stephen Welsh, you're looking going, well, there's no reason I can't do that. I'm in the team. You know, Markham was a bit slack for the goal, but he's still got to put it away, isn't he? It's
three Aberdeen players he rises above.
Yeah, and listen, he's probably more of a threat in the box than Carter Vickers and Starfelt, so he does have that to his game. So yeah, the jersey's his now, and I think if he keeps putting in the performances, Ange won't drop him just to bring Starfelt, or, you know, once Jens is up to speed back. Yeah, I think Ange will show the trust in him, or hopefully. Yeah. And it's great to see, you know, another academy player in the first team making his mark. Yeah, so this season's Greg Taylor, I think.
Bold prediction from Lawrence here, Patrick. I know you're a big Stephen Welsh fan like myself. I think another important aspect of this is when he first came into that Celtic side and started to establish himself out with that Hamilton game and whatnot towards the end of the 1920 season. He was in there with Shane Duffy, and it looked like Welsh was the more senior defender in the two. Whereas this time, he's got Cameron Carter-Vickers beside him, who appears to be talking him through every single game, which can only be a positive thing. And, you know, like Lawrence has just said, that he's made that prediction. Some of our commenters are coming in to say, Welsh steps up like Ayer did and will get more confident. And another usual Tuesday contributor, Egyptian Kings, came in to say Welsh will definitely have a Ralston season this year, 100%. Patrick, do you agree with Lawrence?
It's certainly on the cards. I mean, Taylor really came into his own towards the last 3-4 months of last season. You know, he was sort of in and out the team half due to injury, and you've seen glimpses of him, and he had a tough start to the calendar year, but then towards the end of last season, he was phenomenal, and he was phenomenal again at the weekend. I seen someone on Twitter, and I think I agree, Welsh plays better when he gets a run in the team, and he's got a run in the team in pre-season because Starfelt's been out and he's been playing really, really well. When he was sort of put into the side. I think he played against Raith Rovers. I think he played against was it Alloa in the first round of the Scottish Cup.
Yes.
And then he was brought on at right back against Rangers in the Scottish Cup semi-final, and he didn't play that well because he was just sort of dropped into the team. He's getting a run, he's playing really well, he's making a lot of progressive passes into the middle of the park, which is really, really good. It's probably the one thing Starfelt doesn't do too well. He's always looked a bit nervy passing the ball, Carl Starfelt. But I think he could have a Greg Taylor season because while Starfelt's injured and Jens still hasn't played a competitive game, he's definitely the one that you would trust next to Carter Vickers at the moment. And he's got a run of sort of winnable league games, you would say, before we play the Derby in a month's time and then Champions League games. So he's got a good few games ahead of him to cement his place in the team.
Yeah. Natasha, what's your thoughts on this? I see one of the comments is coming in to say, had we paid a lot of money for Stephen Welsh, should actually probably be raving about him just now. Say he was a £3 million defender, we'd probably be saying keep him in the team. I think some Celtic fans can be a bit, a bit harsh and homegrown talent at times coming into the side. And again, I don't see why you can't have that season. And it's great that you've got that in your squad now, where you're seeing other players, Ralston, Taylor, who's progressed. People maybe thought they couldn't do it under Ange Postecoglou. They've proven that they had. And, certainly Stephen Wilson is going to be a really, really important part of Celtic's squad going forward this season. But it'll be interesting to see how far he pushes Cameron Carter-Vickers and Carl Starfelt, who you would assume are Celtic's kind of first two picks.
Yeah, definitely. At a club like Celtic, there's always going to be competition for places. The players all know there's going to be competition for places. And it's healthy. It's good that they're pushing each other on. It's good to have so many competent options. One thing Ange spoke about in the pre-match press conference that I was at was that he doesn't have a starting 11. He doesn't have his first 11 players. He has a squad of, 22, 24 players that he can utilise and feel confident that putting any of them in is going to get the job done that he wants to be done. They're going to play the system like he wants to play, and he can trust them and he can rely on them. So, well, yeah, there's certainly players who'll have more game time. I think the thing that we're going to see under Ange is that it's going to be much more use of the squad. It's going to be a real squad mentality, and that's not just the 11 players who start on the pitch. So players like Ralston, Welsh, Taylor, I think are all going to go on and play a really big part this season. We know how many games we're going to have to play. European football is just around the corner, which is going to increase that and add to that. And I think utilisation of a big squad is going to be massively important. So perhaps if we see further down the line, if it's Starfelt and Carter-Vickers, then maybe, Welsh comes into the league and we're comfortable with that because he's such an able deputy. Similarly to Greg Taylor, I think that, for now is his position to lose. I thought he was absolutely fantastic at the weekend and probably flies under the radar with the performances of, the usual sort of Hatate and Jota, O'Reilly even, who catch the eye with the nice footwork in the middle of the park. But I thought Greg Taylor was absolutely exceptional. I thought he had another good game. Like I've said, every time gets better every time I see him play. And yes, we've brought Burnaby in, but right now that's Taylor's position. I think ultimately, Burnaby, might end up being, the one who starts in the starting 11. I think that's what he's been brought in for. We've not spent all that money on him not to put him into the squad and to play. But while he gets up to speed, has a bit more training time, works more with the team and the style of football that we play, then yeah, it's Greg Taylor's position for now. Similarly on the right, Juranovic, I think, is, our starter, but Ralston's fantastic. And again, I thought he was really good when he came on. His cross balls are excellent. So I think what we're seeing is it's nice that we've got those sort of options all over the park. And it's not a bad position to be in, is it?
No, it's not a bad position to be in, and that's some of the other commenters' thoughts on the bench. It's great to have a strong bench, and others are saying, it's some bench space. You've got 5 subs. Lawrence, it would be amiss to mention Stephen Welsh and not Greg Taylor. Again, like Natasha, I thought it was absolutely exceptional at the weekend. Had Jota probably not scored that absolute peach of a goal, he'd have been my man of the match. But the jury appears to still be out in the comments. People are coming in to say they would rather see Burnaby than Taylor. And P. O'Neill's come in to say that he believes that Taylor's not good enough. Simple. Lawrence, I completely disagree with that. I think Taylor was absolutely exceptional. And Sunday, he plays the inverted fullback role terrifically well. He knows exactly what the manager's looking for. And to me, it's definitely Greg Taylor's jersey to lose.
Yeah, definitely is jersey to lose. Listen, we could go 1 to 11 and say there's better players out there than are currently in the Celtic first team. You know, I don't think we're going to say we've got the best player in the world in any position. So, and that alone, you know, there's improvement to be made. But look at the improvement Greg has made under Ange in a season. Ange is developing into a cracking player. So I think, you know, it's just outstanding. And yeah, it looks like it's going to do the same with Welsh. So yeah, I thought Taylor was great. And it's his jersey to lose. But on that note, I'm going to have to go, boys. There's someone at the door.
No worries.
And I'll have it. Okay.
We'll see you later on, Lawrence. Bye. I think Lawrence's dog there as well might be a Greg Taylor fan too, because he seemed to get quite, excited when we mentioned Greg Taylor. But Patrick, what's your take on this? Because like Natasha, as I said, I thought it was terrific on Sunday. It's his jersey to lose. I think Bernaby's still getting into that rhythm of Ange Postecoglou's, style of playing as fullbacks. And again, it's important that both, as Natasha says, both will get chances in the league and in Europe, because we've got a hell of a lot of games to get through. And the manager will certainly give people chances.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my opinion. I think we played something like 55 games last season. So the idea that Greg's going to play all 55 is probably nonsense. But, Bernaby, he'll definitely get his chance. He'll probably play at least 5 or 10 games before the World Cup. So we'll get to see him. But you're probably right in what you're saying. He's probably still trying to get sort of used to Ange's system, inverted fullback role, playing inside, making passes, progressive passes inside the park. And, it's something Greg's doing really, really well at the moment. So, as much as Bernaby's going to get his chance, he's going to have to do a hell of a lot to dislodge Greg Taylor. And it's testament to Greg Taylor, the way that we're talking about Welsh. Could they have a Greg Taylor season, the way that Greg Taylor's came on, because he was by no means a bad player when he came in under Neil Lennon. It's one of the areas of the park that you say we could definitely make an improvement if we spent the money, but he wasn't a bad player. And now look at him, he is the sort of benchmark for guys like Stephen Welsh who are in and out the team to try and cement their place. So I think he's came on leaps and bounds since about January, February time, and again he was phenomenal on Sunday.
Yeah, top performance. Natasha, just on kind of Greg Taylor, if you look at it too, we've brought in Alexandro Bernaby. I don't think Ange was bringing Bernaby in to say, that's you did your bit now, Greg, cheerio. Because again, bringing in players to add to your squad depth is to push other players in that position, which is what hopefully Stephen Welsh will do to the other two centre halves. Bernaby will do it in that left back position, and again, it might make Taylor raise his game to a level that we've not seen him. You'll hopefully see that in other positions of the park.
Yeah, exactly. We were short at left back. Apart from Greg Taylor, we didn't really have anyone who you'd put in there. Juranovic, I know, can play at left back, but then you lose his sort of ability on the right, which I think is really important to have. So we were short at left back. He brings in another left back. He's not brought him in to sit on the bench, but he has brought him in to compete for the place with Greg Taylor. He's not going to take shirts off people who are performing well in the position that they're in. It just gives him another option. It gives us another player who can play in that position. And I think that's important. Like you say, great for competition for places and great backup. I think over time, I've probably got to agree with some of the comments that are coming in. I think eventually we are going to see Bernaby probably become first choice left back. Nothing against Greg Taylor. We've not paid all that money for Bernaby to not have him as part of the starting 11. But for now, I think it's going to be pretty hard to oust Greg from that position. So we'll see. Again, like I said before, a great problem to have, and really allows us to rotate our squad depending on the sort of game it is, whether that's Champions League, whether it's domestic, whether it's cup. It just gives us that option to be fluid, to rotate. So absolutely happy with it. But I think come the weekend, I think in Dingwall, I don't think the squad will change too much. Other than, and I'll put this to you guys, I suppose, perhaps might see the introduction of Giacomakis starting up front.
Yeah, that was one of the points I've got noted down to talk about is Saturday. So let's move on to that very quickly. In terms of my opinion on that, I thought, you know, Kyogo, it's really, I think it's easy to forget how much football he missed from the turn of the year. Obviously, came back in April time, scored a great goal up in Dingwall. But again, you know, he probably could have had a hat trick before half time. Sometimes what you could call a typical Kyogo performance. You know, you get loads of chances. Even that one early on in the game, Patrick, if you remember, he scored something similar against AZ Alkmaar last season early on. You know, it just depends. Ross County, from what I watched on Saturday against Hearts, I think the old Jambo fans got a wee bit of fright. They look to have recruited quite well. We know they're a big team. They're very physical. It's a Malcolm Mackay way of playing football. Giakoumakis might be the player just better suited, and I think that's something that Ange will do. Patrick is pick players based on opposition to an extent and just getting that rotation into the team too. I don't think that'll be his main basis of changing the team about, but I think you'll see rotation in the team. And again, you know, Giakoumakis missed a great chance at the weekend too, and it might just be a case of, you know, them getting back out. And obviously missed a couple of games due to the Burfies, his new wee baby. So yeah, I would possibly be tempted to go for big GG on Saturday, Patrick.
I think the way that, you know, as you say, they've recruited well, very physical. They're probably going to have 10 or 11 men behind the ball, aren't they, in their own half? It's a very small and compact pitch up there. Especially from the camera angle, it's a terrible place to watch your team play football. So I would actually agree. I would go with Giakoumakis, in my opinion. You know, you've seen the Kyogo goal that he scored in April. It's a great cross from Jota, but you know, as much as it's a great goal from Kyogo, if you're putting headers and if you're putting crosses into the box, you're probably going to pick Giakoumakis to be getting his head onto them. And again, I think you just need a bit of physicality up there, in my opinion. And I think Giakoumakis definitely brings that more than Kyogo. Not only that, if you get to the 60th minute and you're struggling in any way, if you bring Kyogo on, he's got a bundle of energy. An abundance of energy. And he can make all these runs and he can drag the defence left and right. So, you know, whatever the manager chooses to go for, you've definitely got a very different option, but a quality option coming off the bench if we are struggling, which I don't think we will. I think, you know, if Hearts can dispatch them 2-1, then I think we can dispatch them as well. The only downside is that it won't be in television, of course. It'll only be people on the ground that can watch it in the UK and Ireland, which is very unfortunate, but that's the way that the SPFL are running the show. It's a bit incompetent, but there you go.
Yeah, that's one of the commenters' points in this, and you know, Natasha too. But we've seen the statement from Ross County last week, who said that any Celtic fans trying to buy home end tickets, you know, were being refused entry. The last time we were up there in April time, there was, you know, sections that couldn't let Celtic supporters in. From anything I've seen, it looked as if it was all, you know, quite well mannered and whatnot. I think Ross County were selling extra hospitality packages and then sticking them in with the Celtic fans. So again, yet another allocation cut across the country, which is becoming a bit of a common theme. But just to kind of touch on it, it is a farce that, you know, people in the UK and Ireland can't watch the game. Sky Sports haven't picked it up, and because of the rules changing around COVID, when teams last season would have been able to show this on pay-per-view, they can't, which, you know, it stops people from watching their football team. We should try to encourage people to watch their football team, and you know, for clubs like Ross County, no disrespect to them, Roy McGregor does a great job up there, but you know, it's extra income that I'm sure could go to whether it be player wages or whatever else at the club, and it's a real shame because Ross County are probably missing out here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? You can't have the first away game of the season and fans not being able to watch their team play. It's just beyond frustrating. We're trying to grow the game here in Scotland. We're trying to increase the audience, and not having it available to view is the absolute opposite of that. Similarly to the ticket allocation, again, very frustrating. I think football clubs must be the only business in the world to turn away paying customers. Listen, don't get me wrong. If the home team can sell out their ground to their own fans with the minimum allocation to the away fans, then that is absolutely fine by me.
Yeah.
You know, I support that. Why would you give the away team an advantage?
Which is what Hearts have done, to be fair to them, you know, as much as it's annoying.
Absolutely no issues with what Hearts have done in terms of they've sold out their season ticket allocation. They're giving the away fans the minimum requirement because they're filling their stadium with their own fans. I have absolutely no issue with that at all. We know that isn't always the case in Dingwall, there will be empty seats. And it's just frustrating because more of the fans could have been there to see the team play, particularly when it's not on television. It's just very frustrating indeed, and hopefully being looked at so that we don't have this situation occurring again throughout the season. I'm sure the club will be looking into that more. I certainly hope that they are. I believe our allocation is just short of 1,400. I mean, that is not very much. I'm very lucky to be going up with a ticket. Look forward to seeing the team play, but so frustrated on behalf of people who aren't, that I know travel all over the country in Europe to watch Celtic play, that can't get into this ground and can't watch it on TV, and there'll be empty seats in the stands. So frustrating. Moving on to the actual football and picking up some of the points that you guys have been discussing there. I think I fully agree with Patrick in terms of the Kyogo and Giakoumakis debate. It's something I asked Ange about last week. He's not ruled out the possibility that for some games that they play together, which I think is quite interesting. We did.
He gave the boy beside me a roasting for that on Sunday. He said a team full of strikers. He says, I'll note that one down, mate.
There you go. He certainly didn't rule that out, and it'd be interesting to see, I think, how they could work together in certain games. Not this one, I don't think. I think this one is one for Giakoumakis. I think, like Patrick's already touched on, he's got the physicality that we're going to need going away to a ground like that. I think he will be frustrated. He cut a bit of a frustrated figure after some of his misses against Aberdeen, and I think he'll be looking to put that right. So for me, I think I'd keep the squad relatively the same. I would probably switch Kyogo for Giakoumakis, and I might start Ralston instead of Juranovic. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, but one of the games I found interesting last season was when we went to Livingston, and it was almost as if Ange Postecoglou played a team that suited the fixture, which is something I've not seen him do too much. Obviously, Patty brought Vitor in there, Ralston came in and whatnot, which I think he might do a wee bit more. He may look to do in Dingwall on Sunday. Just to kind of touch back the TV thing, I think over 130,000 fans across the 4 divisions in Scotland went to see their team at the weekend, which is great. But you know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. There's absolutely no sense from the televising perspective. But yeah, back to Ange's starting 11 on Saturday. Patrick, do you think he might play, you know, as Natasha said, the Ralston, Giakoumakis guys who maybe just suit the fixture a wee bit more?
Yeah, a wee bit of physicality, and then obviously, you know, Ralston's got a decent record against Ross County. He's got that famous goal. I don't think there's anything wrong in playing guys who usually play well against a certain team. You know, I know there's no guarantee of success when you do stuff like that, but he does have a good record against Ross County. Yeah, I would agree. You know, I think you need on a pitch that's quite small and it's a bit tight and it's a bit packed. I think you could do with the physicality. Ralston, I think he gets something like 8 or 9 assists last season, along with his 6 or 7 goals. So great cross to the ball. Great at a set piece, you know, corners, free kicks. He gets his head to a lot of stuff. So I could totally go with that. You know, Juranovic is a bit of a dead ball specialist, but what are the chances of us getting dangerous free kicks and penalties? Probably quite low. Whereas we're definitely going to get corners and stuff. So I could definitely see us going with that. I would totally agree. That'll have to be my last point as well. Like Lawrence, I'll need to jump off for work. So I'll see you all next Tuesday.
We'll catch you later. And then there was 2. Natasha, just in Giakoumakis, we put a lot of balls into the box on Sunday there. And Paul's coming in the comments there to say if we're putting 30 plus crosses, and I'd rather have GG in the box than Kyogo. You know, I think I'd probably agree with that too. That there's a lot of joy in the wings on Sunday, and if we're going to get that joy come Saturday at Dingwall, I'd probably be more tempted to go with Giakoumakis up front.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. One thing that slightly frustrated me about Kyogo at the weekend was that, yes, we were putting a lot of good balls into the box, but for some reason, Kyogo just seemed to constantly be wrong side. And the balls coming in were good, particularly, I think, when we switched Jota to the left. I think that made a real difference in terms of the quality and the joy we were getting down the left and the balls into the box from there. But none of them were quite finding Kyogo. Whereas when Giakoumakis was on, they were finding him a lot easier. Perhaps the style of play, the way he plays. Yes, he didn't quite manage to get any of them away, but he was getting himself into the right positions and creating the good chances. Similarly, when Ralston brought on, I thought our crossing improved. So for me, for this sort of game on Sunday, Ralston and Giacomakis could be really good assets. The one other difference, and I'll caveat this by saying I probably wouldn't start him on Sunday, or Saturday, sorry, up in Dingwall, is one of the differences and one of the reasons I think we created slightly more chances when Giacomakis was on is because David Turnbull was on. And I think he provides us with slightly more attack in the way that we play. I think he drives the teams forward slightly more than some of the other midfielders maybe do. And I think when he's on, we do have more of a goal-scoring threat. So as well as Giacomakis giving us that, I think the difference, or one of the differences against Aberdeen, was the introduction of David Turnbull. So for me, he's one that often gets overlooked when we're looking at players like Hatate and O'Reilly in the middle of the park. They were fantastic, again, as they have been through pre-season. So they're going to be very difficult to remove from their positions. But we can't forget David Turnbull, and it comes back to the point that we do have a really, really good quality and depth. And the way we're going to need to rotate our squad for the number of games we're going to play, I expect to see a good amount of David Turnbull too.
Yeah, something people are picking up on is Kyogo maybe not getting picked out with the runs. Stevie Boy's coming in the comp, say Kyogo's making the runs, they're just not finding him fast enough. I think a big part of the success of Kyogo's goals early on in the season, Natasha, was Turnbull in that team. We know he can pick people out with a pass. He's a very talented midfielder. And again, similar to the Norwich game, when he came on, obviously he got his goal against Norwich, he affected the game. And I think come Saturday, Hatate, everything good about Celtic, I think at times in the first half was going through Rio Hatate, but with that wee injury, I think the manager might look to maybe play Turnbull beside O'Reilly. One of the kind of debates that's rumbling on a wee bit is the wingers, and Patrick McLaughlin's come in here to say, for me, Jota is better in the left-hand side. I thought Celtic looked a lot more effective when Jota switched around with Maeda. That happened a few times in the game. It was something I asked him about after the game, Jota. And he said, listen, he said, I'm quite happy to do that. He said, it's about our philosophy. Every player in the team understands to do that. And if it helps the team, I'm happy to play, basically. Anyway, what's your take on that? Because to me, Celtic's probably Celtic's strongest front three at this point in time is probably Maeda, Kyogo, Jota. But people may be asking questions, is that going to suit? Because, you know, when we know that Maeda got all those goals at Yokohama off the left wing, Jota was arguably more effective off the left wing early parts of the season last year, with a bad on that right-hand side. What's your thoughts on this kind of front three conundrum?
Again, I agree. Like I mentioned, I think we got a lot more joy and were a lot more effective with Jota on the left. But it's good to be in a position where the players that we have in that position, in the front three positions really, are flexible, fluid, can adapt to the system, can move from the right to the left, to playing through the middle. It's great to be able to keep changing that up through the game. I think a lot of it might depend on the opposition as well. I think we might be able to target the weakest fullback. That means switching them. If, for example, Jota isn't having any joy on the right, try him on the left and vice versa. Again, nice position to be in that they are all able to play in the different positions across the middle of the park. I think I would probably keep Hatate in the middle if he's come through that knock okay. If he's looking fine.
Didn't seem too concerned about it. Yeah.
Seemed okay. Ange didn't really seem to have any stress about it either post-match. So it seems like it'll be relatively okay, because I think he's important there, and a lot of our good play, like you said, came through him. For me, it's the way that he can pick it up in the middle of the park, turn and offload it in almost one quick movement. And I think that's so key to our quick playing philosophy, is that in that sort of, you know, one transition, the ball's moved from where he is to the forward players. That comment that came in, were they not maybe finding Kyogo's runs, were they not picking him up? Maybe that is one of the reasons. I'm sure that'll come together a bit more as they start to play more competitive games together. I know that's not what Ange likes. We don't need to get into the rhythm. We should already be there. But maybe there is that sense of just getting back into that rhythm between them. But yeah, hopefully Hatate comes through that slight knock and is available for Dingwall, because I think he's absolutely key. What we saw of him last season was exceptional. I thought he was very good. But like he touched on, he was mentally tired. He was physically tired. He just played a season and a half of football, and he was already at a brilliant level. I think he can take that to the next the next level this season. We've already seen glimpses of it in pre-season. We've seen glimpses of it against Aberdeen. So what he can achieve this season, I think, is going to be really, really important. I know he's already been heavily tipped in the early predictions for Player of the Year, and it wouldn't surprise me, because I think he's got a lot more gears to go through, and we've just seen the start of what he's capable of.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more to come from him, and even, you know, Ange continue to play him. I think we just try to get him suited to the system and his expectations and his demands of a midfielder under his style of football. What is your take on that Abada one? Because we've got people in the comments saying that they would start Abada at the weekend instead of Maeda. Johnny Ryan's coming in to say he believes that Jota definitely better on the left, coming inside. Got others coming in to say start Abada, and we've got others saying don't play Abada. What is your take on this, Natasha? Because, you know, certainly I think if I look back at some of the Europa League games, particularly Ferencvaros, where you had Abada, Jota and Kyogo, it worked particularly well at times. And, you know, it's a kind of, you know, if you will, their natural positions. But we know that Maeda can be effective wherever he is. He is the typification of Ange Postecoglou's football. He didn't have a particularly bad game at the weekend. You don't want to make too many changes to the team, but it will be interesting to see how that rotates, I think, throughout the season.
Yeah, no, I would probably stick with Maeda. I think if we're switching Kyogo out for Giacomakis, then I think Maeda's energy up front and on the top three is going to be important. The way he chases the ball down, puts pressure on the defenders. Kyogo does a lot of that, so if we lose Kyogo, I would want to lose Maeda as well. So keeping Kyogo up there to do that sort of work, for me, will be important. And do you know what? The thing is, whoever takes these positions that we're talking about, we're going to have some bench, aren't we? And I think that's going to be a real asset of ours this season, is that, you know, if it isn't quite working, you know, come to the 50th, 60th, 70th minute, the players that we're going to have on our bench are going to be absolutely phenomenal, game-changing players. We saw it at the weekend. You know, we're going to have a bench of, you know, perhaps if we go with the lineup that we've discussed, on Saturday, our bench could have Kyogo, it could have Abada, it could have David Turnbull, who can all have that ability to come on and totally change a game. And yeah, what a wonderful position that is to be in.
Yeah, just to correct myself on that part, it was saying it should be Maeda coming off the bench, not Abada. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you, Natasha, that you don't want to make too many changes to the team up top, because you don't want to affect the rhythm too much. But yeah, I think Maeda is very, very important, especially if you do play Giacomakis, for just that high press and the energy he brings. In terms of the wingers switching about, do you think that's something that helps our game? That, you know, fullbacks are up against different players. Do you think that was something that was effective in Sunday? I certainly thought, you know, when it happened and Jota went over to that side, we did get a lot more joy. Whether that was just Jota being a lot more comfortable on that side, or whether it was the fullback maybe taking a bit of a back, that, you know, he's got Daizen Maeda harrying him for 25 minutes, and then he's got Jota, then you're up against him. It must be a bit of a torrid time if you're a fullback in the Premiership just now.
It keeps them guessing, doesn't it? If 1 minute you've got a player of Maeda's quality running at you, and your breather from that is having Jota running at you, I mean, that's not a nice day at the office. And then when we make our substitutions, all of a sudden you're facing Abada or maybe even James Forrest. I mean, no fullback is going to want to come up against Celtic with the wingers that we've got, who are interchangeable across the positions, that are never going to give you a minute's rest, particularly with Kyogo chasing you down or Maeda chasing you down every 2 seconds. So I think defenders won't like coming up against Celtic this season, and that's all the better for us. I think we're really strong, particularly out wide, particularly in the middle of the park. So yeah, I look forward to seeing what impact that all of our players in those positions are going to have this season. And I think, like we've touched on already, depending on the game, depends who we're going to utilise. But all of them are more than capable of changing the game and having a really strong contribution. So I don't have concerns regardless of who Ange Postecoglou chooses to put in over the weekend, because I think they all are at the level of the quality that we need, and they all play the style of football that he wants us to play. So I trust whoever he is going to put into the team at the weekend, that are going to be more than capable of doing the job. And when it comes to changing it up, the players that come in behind them are going to be more than capable of doing the job. So excellent all round. Yeah,
absolutely. I think we've all got, you know, complete faith in Ange to pick the team he sees best fit to beat Ross County up there. If you were in the big man's shoes, Natasha, what would your team be? I would go with Joe Hart and goal, obviously. I'd go with a back four, but just probably the one change into it, bring Ralston in there to partner Welsh, Vickers and Taylor. Would you agree with that one?
Yep, I'm with you on that so far.
Midfield, I'd probably, if Hattati's okay, I'd probably stick with him in there and play McGregor, Hattati and Turnbull. That's nothing against Matt O'Reilly, because I thought he was absolutely fine at the weekend, but I just think you need to be a bit more freshness in there. And again, we know that O'Reilly can be effective off the bench. What's your thoughts on that midfield three?
I'd keep O'Reilly in. I would keep O'Reilly in. I just think the momentum that he's got going for him at the moment is going to be important. I have him slightly ahead of Turnbull in my rankings so far. I mentioned Turnbull earlier. I think he's fantastic. But O'Reilly stays in for me.
O'Reilly, so stick with the same midfield as Sunday.
I would,
Yep.
yes.
Turnbull, the impact sub again. And then your front three, I'm going to stick with the same two wingers and then Big Jacko up front.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that one. I think that's the right way to go about it. And like we've touched on earlier, look at the players we're going to have coming off the bench. And one we haven't even mentioned yet, who hasn't had a lot of game time, but could be a game for him, particularly off the bench, would be Aaron Moy. I think depending on how the game goes, I think he's a great player who could come in and really shore up that midfield. Not seen a lot of him yet, but I think this is the sort of game that it could be good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he looked a lot more sharper at the weekend after another week's training. He's obviously coming up to fitness. Another week should hopefully do him the world of good. And again, yeah, absolutely. I think we'll start to see him feature a wee bit more. Kelly could be the one he's maybe looking at for down there, the old Plastic Park. Again, didn't go down there again with that plastic surface, but hey ho, you need to beat whatever in front of you. But thanks to everyone for their comments today. Please do like the video if you've been watching. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so. We at the start of the show remembered Celtic legend and Lisbon line John Hughes again. We just like to echo our thoughts at the start of the show. Big Yogi was a Celtic legend and will always be remembered, and we're thinking about all his family at this sad time. So yep, remembering Big Yogi today, and I'm sure there'll be a lot more over the next few days, and Celtic will put their own personal tribute to Big John in the coming days or weeks, maybe when we get back to Celtic Park. But thanks to everybody for joining us, and have a great day.